It is upon us. My favorite time of the year. So New Year's is my favorite holiday forever. And I am so excited. I love everything that happens with New Year's. I love the glitz, the glam. I love the general mindset that you can change your entire life. Like the entire world is on the same page. Like we are going to be better people. And that makes me so happy because I love when people get invested about who they want to be, bettering their habits, creating better routines, just everything. It makes me so happy. And I am so freaking stoked about it. So, with that being said, I wanted to start off. We're going to have kind of like this 3, maybe 4 part getting reset for the new year, kind of what that looks like. And this first one is all about goal setting because in order to, do your vision casting, in order to create habits that stick, all of that, we need to really define what we want, where our goals are, all of that. So this is step 1 of prep for 2024. And we are going to get into a lot of fun things. So let's jump in. Very on brand today. I am drinking a cold brew decaf with vanilla protein in it. So it's a protein cold brew. I have loved kind of like that habit stack of adding protein powder into my coffee because one, the protein powder, I use Nick Bare's, what's that called? Bare Nutrition, BPN. What is the P? Bare Performance Nutrition. There we go. I love that one. My husband is a huge Nick Bare fan. So it's his favorite. And I've just kind of hopped on that bandwagon with him. Like, okay, whatever. So I will add a scoop of that. It's a little bit of a sweeter one. I don't love all the sugar, obviously, in protein powders, but for what it is, it's one of the better ones. So I will add a scoop of like vanilla or chocolate into whatever coffee I'm drinking with a little bit of milk. So I don't add creamer in all the time because it does have that sweetness element already to it. And then I'm having my fun coffee drink on top of getting protein in for the morning, which has been a huge goal of mine. So that's what we're drinking right now. It's absolutely delicious. 10 out of 10, highly suggest. And it just felt right to have a good protein coffee as we talk about goal setting for 2024. So like I said earlier, this is step 1. There's going to be multiple steps to this, but as we look towards the new year, it's really important to have our goals in mind. And I encourage you to do this now before the holidays, before Christmas, before actually New Year's start, because what we're building right here is a map. Okay. So you can start a journey and like, imagine like you're going on a road trip, but you don't have a map. So, New Year's Day, that's when 2024 starts. That's when you're going to like take off on your goals. You're going to leave the house for your road trip. But if you don't have a map laid out, all you're going to do is get lost, you're going to do circles, and you're probably going to end up right back where you started because you didn't get that far. So what we're doing right now is we're creating a map that's going to guide us, that's going to help us, and just lead us to where we need to be led because we are trying to build up this like dream life, right? And I find that when we're really intentional about these goals, when we take the time that we need to, and it's not rushed like New Year's Eve or maybe even the week between New Year's and Christmas of like focusing on this, it's just easier to have those goals laid out before the holidays happen. And I used to do this right in between Christmas and New Year's Day. But during that time, you have family usually still in town. There's things going on. I like to rest that week, like intentional, intensive rest, because I know that I have high expectations for my new year. And I know that what I expect for myself is to show up and to start working towards goals that I've set. So I want that really, really deep rest right before I launch into this. And it's not always restful to start thinking about your goals. So that's why I suggest like mid-December, you take your time to lay out the goals and get it all planned out. And then you're able to launch when you're ready. Okay. So let's do this. Okay. Gotta stretch my back. Sorry. Alrighty. Let's talk about what kind of goals we're setting. Okay. For the next episode with vision casting, we're going to get really, really detailed about this. Okay. Really, really detailed about all the aspects of life, what that looks like. But before we get detailed, I want to take the bigger scope of it, the big picture, and look at what goals should consist of and how to create goals. So that way we're able to do this. So I do this all the time at work. We have a really cool operations officer who's just like amazing at this. He helps us set this up. And then I've applied this practice to my personal life as well, which is so helpful. So I love the breakdown of SMART goals. Okay. And I'm sure you've heard this before. It's very popular in business settings. A lot of lifestyle like gurus use it, all of that. And so basically the SMART goal is an acronym, and there's 5 things that you need to have in order to set a successful goal. Okay. So first of all, the goal needs to be specific. Second of all, the goal needs to be measurable. Third, achievable. Fourth is relative. Yeah, relative. And then the 5th is timely. Okay. Sorry. I wrote my notes and it was like low key kind of dark when I wrote them. So they're a little messy. Anyways, those are the 5 things that we're going to focus on. So first of all, the goal needs to be specific. So you can't be like, I want to lose weight. I want to grow on social media. No, not going to work. I'm even going to say like, I want to start a podcast. I want to start a YouTube channel. Those are still pretty dang vague. Like those aren't really that well done. And what you have to remember is you're looking at the scope of your entire year. So you can get really, really niche about this, and it's okay to get that way. Okay. So when you're talking about a specific goal, like a specific thing that you want to happen. So like, let's say you want to start a podcast. Okay. Maybe your goal needs to be, I want to start a podcast brand. And one of the goals underneath that is release a first episode. One of those goals underneath it is name the episode. So we're going to get really, really specific about what exactly we want and what everything underneath needs to happen. Okay. Like I said, in vision casting, we'll do a lot of like examples of this. Next, it needs to be measurable. Okay. So like I just said, you want to start, like you want to lose weight. Okay, not good because we need to get specific. So I hate the weight example. I'm going to change that. You want to grow on social media. Okay, let's get specific. You want to hit 10K followers. Okay, so this is a really easy measurable goal because once you hit 10K, you've reached it. You've accomplished it. Where like if you want to say, I want to grow on social media, you gain 2 followers. Did you reach it? Like, is that measure? Like it needs to be measurable. You need to pick a time, a way to know if you've reached it. So that one's really helpful. And you can measure things like, okay, let's go back to the podcast example. You want to create a brand for your podcast, and you have mini goals underneath it. Those mini goals are what makes it measurable. So your first episode being released, getting headshots done, starting the social media for it, finding brand colors, all of those are measurable things that you can check off to reach your final goal. Okay. Next, achievable. This is very closely tied. All of these are very closely tied, in case you couldn't tell. Achievable means that you're able to check this off at some point. So I want to grow on social media. You're never going to be able to check that off because there's always room for more growth. Always. Want to lose more weight, want to start a podcast, whatever, all these things. Like you need to get so niche about this because you have to be able to literally check it off, which is why when I'm building goals, I have like a umbrella goal. And then underneath that, we'll have a bunch of little goals. Okay. So I will give you guys an example. I have not told anyone this yet. Well, we had a few people, but I was signed to a publisher and I have a book launching next fall. Again, haven't told anybody this, so but that is obviously an umbrella goal for me. So I have my book publishing, okay? Well, I need to finalize my cover art. That's one achievable, measurable, specific goal underneath my overarching publishing goal. I need to set up my book signing at Barnes & Noble. I need to, there's all of these little details that need to get knocked out with that. And each one is achievable. Okay. So then you go to the 4th one, which is relative. And this one I think can be tricky because it really requires a lot of deep work and like inner thinking of like who you want to be. Okay. So this is a relative goal to who you are, who you want to be, and what you're trying to achieve in life. Okay. So in life, I want to be someone that people know that they can count on for really good advice, for really biblically sound and just really wisdom-filled ideas on how to live their most abundant life, how to live their best life. And so because I know that that's who I want to be, a massive life goal of mine, overall, just my identity in a way, I know that my goal to publish this book is relative to what I want in life. Where maybe a relative goal, like I don't need to ever run a marathon. Okay. So if I made a goal to run a marathon and I was super specific with it, I know exactly which marathon I want to run. I know that I need to train for it. So it's measurable, it's achievable because as soon as I cross the finish line, I've checked off the goal of running a marathon. But is it relative to who I want to be? I don't want to be a runner. I literally hate running with like everything in me, and it's the worst thing ever. So right now, for this season of life, that is not relative. So it's probably not a goal that I actually will look forward to accomplishing, actually want to achieve, and won't be consistent with it because every part of me hates it and it doesn't really lead to who I want to be as a person. Okay. So this relative key is important because if you don't feel passionate about it, if you don't feel truly excited and feel like it adds so much value to your life, it's going to be hard to be consistent with it, right? It's not something that you're going to want to be doing. So that relative one is a little bit more ambiguous, but still just as vital as all the other ones. So then the last one, the fifth one, is timely. Okay, so we went through the SMART. Last one's T, it's timely. So when you're talking about goals, if you don't have a timeline on it, it's really easy for things to fall to the wayside. I mean, think about it in terms of being a student. If you were a student and you knew that you needed to get a degree, but nothing had a due date on it, I think for a lot of us, it would be really, really challenging to sit down and do work when there's not a due date. And I've definitely learned this lesson with my book. Because I wrote the book back in the spring, and then I sent it to a couple publishers. They loved it, but I really wanted to add a lot more to it. I felt like it wasn't quite complete. I felt like there were a lot of things that could be added. So I asked for next fall for it to be published, and then wanted to start working on it more. But I didn't have a due date really because they could get my book kind of whenever, and it was really hard to work on writing on because it was just kind of this ambiguous, okay, well, next fall is when it's supposed to be published. So do I really need to sit down and write for a weekend in November? Nah, I can push it off. And you don't want your goals to be something that you can continually push off because the time is so ambiguous. So you have to set due dates. So I started setting due dates with my publisher and I was like, okay, I'm going to have the entire intro to the book to you by X date. And then I'll have the next portion of the book to you by this date. And so having a date to look forward to when I knew I needed pieces accomplished by made me actually do the work. And the same goes for school. The same goes for social media. If you know that you want to grow 100 followers, okay, well, then you know that you need to actually work on social media, reply to comments, be engaged with people, all of that, be posting each month. Okay. So you have to be timely. And this is where I love the umbrella goal with a bunch of mini goals underneath it, because then those mini goals are really easy to add due dates on. Okay. So let's use the podcast example. You want to create a podcast brand and successfully launch it. Okay. This is our goal, podcast brand launch. So you know that you need all the things I listed out before. So instead of scheduling out your first podcast episode and being like, okay, I want to launch my podcast episode in March. Don't put a due date on that yet because you have a lot of other things that need to happen first. You need to get your microphone. You need to script out a couple episodes. You need to create the visual, the brand, come up with a name, all those things. So go in order, create a list of all the things that you're going to need, and then add dates to those, starting with what you need the soonest, which is probably a podcast name. Okay. And so as you build that out, so let's say by the end of January, you want all of the branding done. You want your logo, podcast name, headshots done, and your color scheme picked out, as well as a paragraph on what your podcast is and what it stands for. So that way people can understand you. Okay, great. Then in February, you should probably build out all the social media channels, start to really maybe tease it out a little bit, record some podcast episodes, invite some guests, all of that. So you have these mini goals that you're going to create, which are all still specific, measurable, achievable, relative, and timely. That is going to lead to your yearly goal, because giving yourself a year to create a podcast brand and launch it is honestly more time than you need. But it's still a good goal to have. And it's something that you can accomplish and you can look back on and say, okay, in 2024, I did that. And I think that that is where it gets really, really powerful. And so you have your big umbrella goal. And then you have all your mini goals underneath. So in order to succeed with your mini goals, you have to develop a routine and schedule that leaves space for this, okay? So creating a system or a protocol, routine, whatever you want to call it, that gives you space to work towards your goals is what's going to make sure you're successful. So for me, let's go back to the podcast one, okay? So we have our goal. Now, that is a lot of things that I need to do. I have a lot of checks that I need to add to these check boxes in order to succeed at this goal in a year. So yes, I have a year, but I got to keep it timely. And I have a lot of little things. Well, for me, I don't work my 9 to 5 on Fridays. We don't work. Project Rescue doesn't work on Fridays. So I know that I have Fridays that I can invest into my podcast. I can lean into that and do what I want to do. So find time in your schedule that you're going to carve out on a weekly basis, maybe daily, depending on how big the goal is, that you're going to carve out for this specific goal. And when you do that, you're then setting yourself up for even more success because you're creating a routine that's supporting the goal that is ultimately leading to the life you want. So you have your dream, but now you have a way to achieve your dream because you know what time you're going to work on it. This isn't some ambiguous problem anymore. You're not like, okay, I want to start a podcast. Okay, great. Now what? You know what I'm saying? You've got a list of all the little goals you've got to create and now a timeline and a time frame in which you can accomplish all of those things. So developing the schedule around that is huge. And I think one of the greatest tools for that is time blocking. So let's say you don't have a full day to commit to whatever you want to work on, but you have an hour before bed. Or you have an hour in your weekend, maybe a few hours that you can time block for this specific project, or just knowing that that is the time that you want to work on your project that may change. So let's say you launch your podcast, you're like, great, now I want to write a book. You can keep that same time block going and work on that consistently. So you know that maybe Saturdays from 8 to 10, you're working on whatever goal it is. You've time blocked out. It's goal time, baby. So whether that's you write a book, whether that's you work on a podcast, it can change, but it's still your time to be consistently showing up for the person that you want to be by achieving the goals that you've set. I hope that makes sense, okay? Another really, really big ticket to kind of mastering this is the accountability incentive idea, right? So for a lot of us, the accountability is crucial. It is for me 100%. I know for a fact that that's just going to be something that I need to focus on is finding accountability for what I want. I am very, very lucky that I get to work with Matt on a lot of these things. He is a very ambitious person. So he holds me to a lot of things, specifically when it comes to like my fitness routine. Like I will sit him down and say, this is my goal. This is what I want. And I need this from you specifically. I need you to check in and make sure that I'm being consistent in this aspect or whatever. And he does the same with me. So we're very lucky because we can really lean on each other for that. But if you don't have that, literally there are so many friends in the world, the internet, all of the things that you can just be like, hey, do you think that you could just maybe text me once a week? Like you can even set a reminder in your phone. Text me once a week and ask me how much I worked out or how many times I posted on social media. Just find someone that you can count on, to lean on, that will send you maybe a reminder. And if you're good enough at it by yourself, you can do this yourself. You can set reminders in your phone. You can schedule out time on your calendar, all of that. For me, it's too easy for me to pass by. It's too easy for me to go, never mind. So I need like a person to consistently be that accountability partner for me. And similarly, I love the incentive idea with that. So an example of this, I really wanted a new podcasting mic, which I got this nice Shure one. It's beautiful, all the things, but it was a little bit of a pricier mic. So I wanted to podcast consistently for 6 months. And when I was able to do that, I was able to get my new mic. So you have to set incentive goals for yourself of like little rewards that happen when you achieve those. So you have something to look forward to. So let's say you have a massive goal on your list and it's to publish a book or something crazy like that. You know, there's so many instant rewards that come with it that maybe it doesn't need to be set apart, or maybe it does. Maybe you get to go for a fancy dinner out, or maybe you get a weekend away when you accomplish one of your massive goals for the year. Okay. So have little incentives put in to your goals. And even if it's just the feeling, like you can even just mark the incentive as, you know what, if I accomplish this, I'm going to feel really, really good. So if I cold plunge 3 days a week for the first month for January, I'm going to feel really, really good about myself. Right. And so that's really helpful. And I think what's really powerful about goal setting and a really important aspect is writing all of this down. Okay. I can't even imagine what it would be like to not have this written down, to not know and be able to track it. And it really isn't achievable at that point if you're not writing it down, because you're going to forget, you're going to maybe adjust the goal in your head from what it originally was, which isn't always bad, but writing it down kind of gives it like this concrete feeling. You know what I mean? And this is such a stupid example, but I always think about this is, God gave a lot of his prophecies, a lot of his commands verbally. So think about in the Old Testament, he told everybody, hey, get out of Egypt. I was like a verbal command, and verbally he instructs people and all of that. But when it came to the 10 Commandments, he had them written down. He was like, Moses, write these down, buddy. And I think that when we really want to emphasize something, when we really want to focus on something that is long-term, that is important, there is power in like physically writing it down, because it just makes a lasting impact on your mind. And also you can look back on it, which is really important. So part of my end of year reflection, which I just finished up last weekend, is going through my list of what I really wanted to focus on in 2023 and seeing how I did. So a couple of those goals was, one, to write the book and to find a publisher. So I did that. Another one was to finish foster care and become licensed for that. We did that. And so just kind of looking back and really looking at what I did well, what did I not do? What did I miss out on? What did I set as a goal that, is no longer relative? Because that changes too. So write down and be able to then break down those big goals into the smaller ones underneath it. Okay. So again, you have your start a podcast, write it down, write down all the small goals, write down due dates, write it down, because it just gives it this essence of permanence, essence of importance. And that's really, really crucial and key when you're trying to determine goals. And these aren't just goals that you're maybe doing because it's trendy, because it's New Year's Day, because you're supposed to. These are goals that you're making that are setting you up to be the person that you were designed to be, that you feel led to be. These are relative goals. These are what are ultimately going to shape your life, right? Because every day is full of habits. Every day is full of those habits are then create these routines. These routines build up to our days. These days build our weeks, our months. And then that is exactly what forms our years. So these micro habits, these massive goals, all of that is literally what's shaping your entire life. And you have the power, you have the control to reshape that, to make it relative, to make it specific and achievable to what you want it to be. You have that control. All you need to do is start implementing those steps of what you can do. And those little steps lead into these bigger strides that ultimately mean that you're crushing goals that, 2015 you wouldn't have even been able to comprehend you were taking on. And that's how you do it. You little steps build up to those long strides. And I think taking that control back, allowing yourself to realize, you know what? I'm capable of accomplishing these goals. I'm capable of doing the work, leads you to just the most incredible accomplishments. So kind of bringing it all together, make your goals very specific, make them measurable, achievable, keep them relative to who you are, give them a due date, make sure they're timely, add on some incentives to them, and develop a system within your routine that gives you the space to accomplish them exactly. And then make sure they're written down, because you're going to want to be checking these off as you go. Okay. So overall, like I said, this is kind of a broad lesson on goal setting. It's very big. It's not niche, but we're going to go into a new episode next week on vision casting for 2024, where we're going to be really niche about it. We're going to talk about exactly what areas of life we want to be making goals in and how to create goals that really do serve us instead of us just being like, oh, that was a goal because I thought I should run a marathon. I thought marathon running was something that a healthy person does in the new year. But is that actually you? Is that who you are? Okay, anyways, I love you so much, and I am so excited to see all of your goals, and feel free to tag me or comment any questions. Feel free to DM, all the things, and I am here for you. I would even love to be your accountability partner if that's something that you need. Feel free to DM me or email the Inspired Lady podcast, all the things, and I will try to help you with your accountability because this is so important, and I'm so proud of you.